You ever meet someone who quietly holds the weight of the world, mop in hand, head held high, and no one even notices? For 18 years, Martha Johnson cleaned the same building from sunrise to late evening. While everyone else climbed ladders, she held steady. No one ever thanked her. But when injustice struck a young intern, she dared to speak. They fired her for it. What they didn't know? Her son was the new CEO, and he was walking through those glass doors the next morning. It started, as it always did, with silence. Long before emails dinged, before heels clacked across tile or the smell of burnt office coffee filled the air, Martha was already at her post. The cleaning cart creaked softly beside her as she moved down the corridor of Blake & Sutter Financial, a glass and steel beast of a firm that prized polish, prestige, and too often pride over people. At 5:47 a.m. sharp, Martha keyed herself into the building. Same time every day. Her reflection passed over the chrome elevator doors. A middle-aged black woman in scuffed sneakers, a worn uniform, and eyes that held more history than most people in that office would ever guess. She wiped down the smudged front door with steady hands, set the chairs in the waiting area just so, and placed a folded paper towel beneath the leaky coffee machine. The same leak she'd reported 4 times. No one had fixed it. No one had listened. No one ever really looked at her. But that didn't matter. What mattered was doing the job right. And she did. Every corner, every surface, spotless. Martha wasn't just a janitor. She was a survivor of systems that were never designed for her success, a single mother who once dreamed of being a CPA. But when bills stacked higher than her textbooks and childcare cost more than her paycheck, she traded dreams for double shifts. Still, she raised a son, Jason, on midnight oatmeal, whispered affirmations, and the belief that education is the only inheritance I can afford to give you. He listened, every word, and she never let him see how tired she really was. On that Wednesday, the office was buzzing by noon. Phones ringing, printers spitting out reports, the usual cadence of capitalist churn. Martha, already on her 6th hour, made her way down the back hall when she heard it. Raised voices. In the break room stood Davis, the department manager, face flushed, jaw clenched, barking at an intern half his size. The kid, maybe 20, stood frozen, shoulders hunched like he was bracing for a storm. You screwed this up, and now I have to explain it to the partners? Davis's voice sliced through the room. This is incompetence, pure and simple. Martha stepped in, quietly. She didn't raise her voice, didn't point fingers. She just cleared her throat and said, "Excuse me, sir, but that young man did exactly what he was told. I saw the file. The error wasn't his." The silence that followed was loud. Davis turned. "I don't remember asking for your input." Martha didn't blink. "Didn't think you had to. But truth doesn't care who says it." Later that afternoon, an HR envelope waited for her in the custodial closet. Inside, termination for disruption and violation of office hierarchy. In short, they fired her for telling the truth. That night, her apartment was dim, the radiator ticking like it had a secret. On the fridge, a magnet held up a photo. Jason in his graduation robe, beaming. She didn't cry. Not because she wasn't hurt, she was, but because life had taught her tears don't pay rent. She poured herself weak tea, sat in silence, and whispered to no one in particular, "You give the world everything, and it still finds a way to sweep you aside." What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that her son was already on a flight. Jason Johnson wasn't just any executive. He was the newly appointed CEO of Blake & Sutter Financial, the firm's youngest, and its first black chief in the company's 76-year history. His appointment was being kept quiet until Monday. A formal announcement, a boardroom lunch, the usual press, but Martha's call, short even, had changed that. "Hey, baby," she'd said. "Don't worry. I'm okay. They let me go. It's nothing. These things happen." Jason had heard a lot of things in his life, but hearing that someone had disrespected the woman who had sacrificed everything to put him through law school, that wasn't nothing. He moved his meeting, changed his flight, and didn't tell a soul. Because for Jason, this wasn't just business. This was personal. When the elevator doors opened, time didn't just slow, it stopped. The same office that had treated Martha Johnson like she was invisible now held its breath. A tall, sharply dressed man stepped out, his eyes scanning the space with precision. Most of them didn't recognize him yet. But by the end of the morning, no one would forget his name or his first words, "Where's my mother?" The Monday morning chaos at Blake and Sutter was in full swing. Laptops booting, coffee brewing, keyboards tapping. Some of the junior associates joked about the new CEO. Rumors were flying. "Apparently he's some hotshot from LA, someone said near the water cooler. "Harvard Law," said another, adjusting her glasses. "I heard he's young, like actually young, not just 30s still figuring it out young." No one mentioned his name, because no one knew it. But the receptionist knew something was up when the sleek black town car pulled up in front of the building. Out stepped a tall black man in a tailored navy suit, clean fade, and a presence that didn't need an introduction. The kind of presence that made secretaries sit up straighter and middle managers swallow their jokes mid-sentence. He didn't stop at the front desk. Jason Johnson walked like someone with a mission, because he had one. And it had started the moment he saw his mother's missed call and heard the weariness in her voice. At 8:02 a.m., the elevator doors opened on the 12th floor, the floor Martha used to mop every morning. Now she stood there, holding a brown cardboard box with her name scribbled on the side. Inside, a pair of old work gloves, a small jar of tea leaves, and a folded picture of Jason in a graduation cap. Her shoulders were slightly slumped, her eyes tired. She hadn't wanted to cause a scene. Jason caused one for her. He crossed the lobby in 6 strides, not rushed, but unmissable. The chatter stopped. Phones were lowered. Even Davis, the manager who'd fired her, paused mid-sip of his coffee. Jason walked right up to Martha. Without a word, he pulled her into a firm embrace, the kind that carried decades of gratitude. He whispered, but made sure it echoed. "Mama, I told you not to stay here so long." Martha froze. Her eyes searched his face, confused, disoriented. "Jason, what are you?" But her voice trailed off. Everyone was watching. Jason turned toward the stunned employees. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "I'm Jason Johnson. Starting today, I'm the new CEO of Blake and Sutter." A full beat of silence, then gasps. The HR director's clipboard slipped from her hands. One of the interns dropped their coffee. Davis choked on his own name. "I'm sorry. Wait, CEO?" he stammered. "You're him?" Jason didn't look at him. He looked only at his mother. "This woman, my mother, has cleaned this office for 18 years, every morning before sunrise, while most of you were still asleep. She was here making this place run." He turned to the room now, his voice sharper. "Some of you walked past her without a word. Others ignored her complaints, her suggestions, her humanity. And one of you," he turned now to Davis, "had the nerve to fire her for telling the truth." Davis's face drained of color. "Mr. Johnson, I didn't know that she was my mother, or that she was a human being who deserved respect." Jason didn't blink. Because neither should matter. He turned to the HR director. 3 internal complaints about discrimination in this department, all dismissed, no investigations, not even a follow-up call. And yet, one moment of honesty from someone in a blue uniform was enough for termination. That ends today. No one spoke, not even a breath. Jason took the box from Martha's hands and set it gently on the receptionist's desk. "You can put that down, Mama. You're not going anywhere." He pulled out a new badge from his suit jacket, white lettering, gold trim, and handed it to her. She read it silently. Her hands trembled. Director of Inclusive Strategy and Corporate Equity. Martha looked up. "Jason, I can't. I don't even know what that means." Jason smiled, the steel behind his gaze softening. "It means you're going to help make sure what happened to you never happens to anyone else here again." "But I didn't go to business school. I don't." "You raised me, didn't you?" he said. "You taught me how to fight with dignity, how to speak when it matters. That's more leadership than most execs ever learn." The room was still, but not cold, just quiet in the way that precedes a storm of realization. And then, someone clapped. It started at the back. Quiet, unsure. Then another joined, then another. In seconds, the entire office, assistants, analysts, even the intern Davis yelled at, stood applauding. Not out of obligation, out of something deeper. Because they knew. Even if they hadn't seen it before, they saw it now. Later that morning, in the glass-walled boardroom, Jason stood before the senior staff. Some fidgeted, others avoided eye contact. He held up a weathered resume. "Martha's, 18 years, he said, placing it on the table. 3 internal applications, 0 responses. She was never promoted, never thanked. But she's the reason I'm standing here today. And she's not alone." He turned to the HR director. "How many qualified employees have been overlooked because they didn't wear a suit or sit behind a desk?" No one answered. Jason pulled out a folder. "This is a list of every internal transfer denied in the last 5 years. I want each reviewed by end of week." He looked around the room, voice firm now. "We've rewarded silence for too long. From now on, we reward integrity." That afternoon, Martha sat in a real office. Her nameplate gleamed beneath the sunlight. She didn't cry, though she wanted to. Instead, she opened a fresh notebook and began writing names. Names of women who'd cleaned floors beside her. Of men who'd aged behind supply carts. Of every person who was ever made to feel small, though they'd carried so much. Jason walked in with 2 mugs. "I made tea," he said, smiling. "Use that fancy loose leaf stuff you like." She laughed, shaking her head. "You CEO now. You supposed to drink espresso and forget your mama." "Never," he said, "because you didn't let the world forget me." Martha looked out the window, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. "So, where do I start?" Jason nodded toward the notebook. "You already did. You can fire a person, but you can't erase their memory. You can't erase their truth." Martha Johnson used to scrub the walls of this building. Now she was rewriting the rules inside them. But when a former janitor becomes a department head overnight, not everyone claps. And some start plotting in silence. The next morning, Martha arrived at the office the same time she always had. 5:47 a.m. Only this time, she wasn't wearing a custodial uniform. No mop cart, no rubber gloves, just a navy blouse, gray slacks, and a leather-bound notebook tucked under her arm. The one Jason had bought her years ago for dreams, he said. She never thought she'd use it for this. She passed the same security guard, who once barely looked up from his phone. Now he stood and opened the door for her with a nod and a nervous smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Johnson," he said, voice low but respectful. Martha smiled. "It's Director Johnson now, but Martha's fine." As she stepped into her new office, just 2 doors down from Jason's, her stomach fluttered. Not from nerves, from responsibility. This wasn't about her anymore. This was about who came after her. Her first move was simple. Listen. By 9 a.m., she had printed 30 anonymous feedback forms and sent them to every corner of the building. Custodial closets, tech support rooms, even the parking garage. Each one asked 3 questions. Have you ever reported an incident of workplace bias or discrimination? If yes, were you satisfied with the outcome? What would justice look like to you? The forms were collected in a locked drop box at her office door. Martha sat back and watched them appear, slowly at first, then in bunches. By lunchtime, the box was half full. By the end of the week, it was overflowing. Each form was a story. A Filipino IT technician passed over for promotion 6 times, even while training the people who got the jobs. A Latina receptionist who was repeatedly mistaken for a temp despite 5 years of service and perfect performance reviews. A white single mother in accounting who was written up for personal phone calls, while male coworkers FaceTimed their golf buddies in plain view. Martha read every page. She made color-coded notes, highlighted patterns, cross-referenced with HR files Jason granted her access to. What she found wasn't surprising, but it was undeniable. There was a system, and that system had teeth. Meanwhile, the whispers began. She's only here because her son gave her the job. She's going to play favorites. What does a janitor know about inclusion anyway? It didn't take long for some of the middle managers, especially those who'd climbed the ladder by standing on others, to start pushing back. One particularly vocal one was Caroline Marks, head of operations. A blazer-wearing, efficiency-obsessed woman who once prided herself on cutting dead weight and bragged about how she cleaned up underperforming teams. She summoned Martha for a professional development chat. "I just want to make sure you understand," Caroline began, lacing her fingers, "that the culture here at Blake & Sutter is built on performance, not personal stories?" Martha smiled. "Now, and I suppose cleaning 18 years of everyone else's mess doesn't count as performance?" Caroline's eyes narrowed. "You're here now, and that's fine. But I'd advise you not to rock the boat too hard. People are watching." Martha stood, calm, steady. "They've been watching me for 18 years, she said. "They just didn't know it." That Friday, Martha called her first town hall. It wasn't in the sleek executive conference room with the skyline view. It was in the break room on the 9th floor, where the staff usually ate cold lunches and counted down the hours. She stood at the front, hands folded. No podium, no teleprompter. Just her voice. "I want to talk about what we pretend not to see," she began. "All of you know me. Some of you only knew me as the person who changed your trash bags. That's fine. But I want you to know what I saw while I was doing it." She pulled out a crumpled printout, an actual thank you note from an intern she'd once defended when he was being berated. The same one Davis had yelled at. "He sent me this after he got hired full-time. He said he stayed because he saw someone stand up for him." She looked up. "I want you all to stay too, but not just physically. I want you to feel like you belong here. And that means no more silence. No more tolerance for intolerance. From now on, this company doesn't just have a janitor who saw everything. It has a leader who's ready to change it. A murmur spread through the room, then applause. Slow at first, then rising. It wasn't just appreciation. It was relief. Back upstairs, Caroline seethed behind her glass door. "She's grandstanding," she hissed to a colleague. "Wait till the board hears about this." But the board already had. Jason had sent them copies of Martha's report. 36 incidents of documented workplace discrimination, 19 unaddressed complaints, and 7 promising employees who had quit due to hostile environments. He sent one message with it. "She's fixing what you ignored. Let her." That evening, Martha sat in her office long after everyone else left. The janitorial team passed by and paused. One of them, a young black woman named Alicia, stepped in. "Ms. Martha," she said, "I just wanted to say, I didn't think I'd ever see someone like us in one of these offices. I thought this place would always be theirs." Martha smiled, standing up. "Then sit down. Let's talk about how to make it ours."